Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the number one way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Green man in the desert night, Bigfoot roaming out of sight. Government shadows, secrets deep, conspiracies unfold while we sleep. Strange encounters unexplained, truth is out that really shame. Men with knowledge, voices bold, unraveling history, stories untold. Area 51, a whispered name. UFO sightings, a haunting flame. Loch Ness monster, cryptozoology, a curious gift. Strange encounters unexplained, truth is out there bravely chained. Men with knowledge, voices bold, unraveling mystery, stories untold. Skeptics doubt, believers yearn for answers hidden yet to learn. In the twilight zone where logic bends, the search continues with all ends. Strange encounters unexplained, truth is out there bravely chained. Men with knowledge, voices bold, unraveling mystery, stories untold. Truth is out there. Truth is out there.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be listening from. I am Rick Robinson. This is Juxtaposition, and I'm joined. We have a panel tonight. We may or may not have an alien joining us later. So for those of you that have been expecting the deep dive on the new alien files that have been dropping over the last few months, I promise it's coming. The issue is, for the last few weeks, I haven't felt very well, starting to feel good again. But now Amish is off doing secret Amish things. I'm pretty sure there's some sort of barn raising or butter churning emergency that keeps causing him to not be able to do the fun things. But we're hoping to have that one back in 2 weeks. But when I realized when I looked, we hadn't put a Juxtaposition on the board since April 18th. I was like, okay, we got to do something. I can't just keep not doing shows. So I decided we're going to bring in some of the guys that I know that actually love to discuss cryptids and more specifically Bigfoot. So right now, to my right on the screen, we have none other than BZ, or shall I say Bravo Zulu. I have a feeling you picked that for a reason, if you know what Bravo Zulu is typically used for.
I do happen to know what that means.
It just occurred to me the other day. I was like, I think I know what he picked that for. He's telling himself he did a good job.
Oh, there's a long story, which is too long for here, but I enjoy the name. Yes, thank you. And thanks for the invite.
You are more than welcome. We also have Bubstock Ken from Front Porch Forensics, who just finished his show and still decided he wants to do a double header tonight. So.
Absolutely. I'm always ready to join when I can. I love Juxtaposition. I am a cryptids nerd at heart, and we just got done with our Front Porch Forensics Real Killers episode about the movie's Creep, and actually, they're about 3/4 of the way through. Patrick Bryce, who is the director of all the Creep series, and it actually one of the actors in the first series joined us in the chat room. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. Yeah, I was busily getting this one thrown together because it was kind of a last minute decision. Because when I realized Amish wasn't going to be able to do anything, I was almost like, you know what, I'm just going to take the night off. Then I was like, but we haven't done this show in over 3 months. I got to do another show. Or eventually, all the folks that have us are going to be like, yeah, we're going to start dropping you because you're not putting up new content anymore. So yeah, that'd be good. Well, I mean, I'm always blurry. Trust me, that is for your benefit. Nobody wants to see this face for real. Just saying, I have a face made for radio and a voice made for print. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. Anyway, Campbell in the YouTube chat's giving me a hard time. And yes, I finally remembered that I have to turn the YouTube channels back on in this one because the last time we did a YouTube, we were pulled from YouTube. So yeah, I at least went in and switched on the KLR radio one real quick. So anyway, let's start going around the table real quick before we get into things. BZ, how are you? I know it's been a minute. You know, it's been like a whole 36 hours since we've done this, but how you been?
Pretty much. I am great. I like to talk about this kind of stuff. I got a political show, but
before we get into things, BZ, how are you? I know it's been a minute.
Whoa, hello.
Somebody's got some audio coming through somewhere. 36 hours.
That was me. My apologies. I'm getting my chats up so I can talk to everybody. That was my fault.
Well, at least you said getting your chats up, so there was clarification, because otherwise I'd have been like, please turn your camera off.
Anyway, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
No, I'm yeah, I know this is a topic that you absolutely love, and I have to admit, I do enjoy when you spin up your 404 show every once in a while. So,
well, primarily because someone helped me with music for that. Let's see.
No,
I'm pointing in the right direction. It would be somewhere from someone in that direction.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have no. But no, I mean, you already decided to do the show before I ever made the music. I just got inspired because I was like, he needs a different intro for that one.
Yeah, it wasn't very good. I actually have a new good intro, which is excellente. It's really good.
Yeah, MD, you're not the only one. Like half the people that normally come into the chats on X are like, I can't make it work. And then other people can. And then other people aren't even seeing the show up on their feeds until like 24 to 36 hours later. X is foobar right now. That's all I know.
Didn't X send something out? I think I received it. It says, update the new X chat. I got that. I don't know if anybody else did.
No, I think that has more to do with them changing how the DMs and stuff work, because now it's called chat, not DMs. I think. Well, but anyway,
technology. Don't listen to me about that, kids. That's an important safety tip. First thing you learn about BZ. Don't listen to anything he says about technology.
BZ, the techno-Luddite.
Thank you. I'll be here all night.
All right, so Bigfoot. Where we want to start, and who wants to go first? What we want to do? What we want to do?
Well, it depends on where you want to go. I started an interest in that. I'm 76. My interest started a long time ago.
You mean you were born in 76, right?
1776. Luckily.
So this is your 250th year too?
Isn't that fortuitous? That's absolutely wonderful. This is what started me out in this, and this is my original tattered ancient copy. This is Abominable Snowmen, Legend Come to Life from Ivan T. Sanderson, which I purchased in 1961 when I was 11 years old. This is an original copy. This thing is probably 800 pages, and as an 11-year-old, it's so weird because man, I ate this up. Now, it talks about abominable snowmen, but this is also equally applicable to things that became known as Bigfoot, Sasquatch, etc. But back in 1961, what's important about 1961? There was no Patterson-Gimlin film. So when people were talking about cryptids back then, they were speaking about mostly this, the Yeti. And Ivan T. Sanderson wrote a whole bunch of anthropological stuff. See, I got through that word. I had to study for about 2 weeks though. And I loved this book. A massive, thick book, which is still in my library. And that opened my mind to, even as a kid, anything like UFOs. I can distinctly remember being in Mrs. Crawford's class at Dyer Kelly School, and they had a little teeny library in there. One of the books that they had was a kind of a smaller black book, a hardback, which talked about, even then in the early 60s, spoke about what would you do with first contact with UFOs. And I got that book and I read it, and I was skying off into the ozone about cool shit. And then eventually, it took me a really long time, but I had always been interested in those kinds of things. And then I hooked up with a paranormal convention about 2006 in Sacramento, in which a couple of guys from Fresno came up, and they were interested in the paranormal, Bigfoot, unexplained. And then I made friends with this other guy named Alan Thomas. And then after that, and the sky was the limit. And then luckily, before he passed away,
disconnected.
Something is disconnected. Luckily, I happened to meet Dr. Jeff Meldrum on May 24th at the Bigfoot Investigative Group Conference in Broomfield, Colorado. And I only drove 1,200 miles one way to see him. And I was very glad that I did. Like I say, that was May 2025, and he passed away on September 10th, 2025, of brain cancer. A wonderful, incredible guy, very kind. And after watching his, he had a presentation. He's very well known in the anthropological community. See, I said it twice. And he lent the entire investigative area with regard to cryptids, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever it is that you want to call them. He led the way because he was a professor of anthropology and also a professor of anatomy. And if you had gone to one of his presentations, which I was lucky enough to that particular day, about a 3-hour presentation of the Patterson-Gimlin film, and brought out very important points that nobody else had done. That was 1968, and people are still saying that following that, it's a hoax. People say it's a hoax. They know it's a hoax. That technology didn't exist. And the reason I know that technology didn't exist is because if you remember, Stanley Kubrick released a film in 1968 called 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make sure, is that the guy you're talking about that's on the screen with you right now? Is that the one?
I speak. That is Dr. Jeff Meldrum. Very kind, very gracious with his time. And that was there at the conference. And as I indicate, if you had seen his 2.5 to 3 hour presentation, you would believe, because this was not presented simply in terms of here's what I think happened. This is presented by an actual doctor, a scholar from the University of Idaho, who had tenure and had such for many years, and presented this information in great detail by PowerPoint videos. And you would be a believer of this at the conclusion of that 3-hour presentation. Absolutely stellar. And from that, I was not aware that he had written books. This is the one that he is mostly known for, Sasquatch, Legend Meets Science. And it is a hardback, many pages. in this, and all of this is evidential with many, many footnotes, photographs, etc. Then while I was there, I happened to acquire a cast. Let's see if this is the right way. Now it's the right way. Signed by him out of his collection. And it is a cast whose situation was this. Apparently in 1982, there's a guy, a deputy sheriff named Dennis Hereford of Grays Harbor, Washington. And this deputy cast this footprint, which is a copy of, obviously it's not the same thing. It's 17 inches in length from a trackway discovered on a logging spur. From the skeletal landmarks and dynamic signatures, the skeletal proportions can be inferred. And the inference was that this was a creature probably around 700 to 800 pounds. This is the information that was provided with the cast that I acquired. And Dr. Meldrum had essentially the largest collection of castings in the world that he kept. He had probably close to 500 or 600 casts. I never made it to his office. A friend of mine, Dan Toth, was a very good friend of Dr. Meldrum's, and he had been invited to his office, and everything in there. The reason I lend credence to Dr. Meldrum is that he came at it from a scientific approach, not from I saw the video. Yeah, I believe it. I've heard things out there. Yeah, I believe it. He came from a Mark 1 Model 1 standard scientific aspect, and I almost said aspect and approach, and that's why he lent credence to the whole thing, because how many people can you come up? You can't fool me, BZ. That Shaq's Dr. Scholl's insert. Would you stop revealing things? I asked you not to say that. Wasn't the $50 enough? Oh, okay. It had Shaq on the $50 bill, but I thought that was enough. Apparently not. Anyway, I became very, very interested in that. And I had what I believed was a sighting myself. And I tried to reverse it. We can talk about it later or not talk about it at all, but whatever the desire. It was the only sighting that I think I had ever had. And it's one of those things where Dr. Meldrum was supposed to be at a conference this week in Coeur d'Alene. He passed away. And I thought, okay, I'll just wait because that's in my that's in my neck of the woods now. You're talking North Idaho. And I thought, okay, when he gets there, I will ask him about my potential sighting and see if the elements that I found that were involved in this sighting could be possible. Because I went back after having this sighting and tried to backtrack the logic, etc. And I went, check. Okay, it could. Have there been similar sightings? I was going to ask him. He passed away, and that was a great, terrible loss to the cryptid community.
Ken, you just reminded me that I forgot to grab a cigar before the show started.
Damn.
I think.
I've always got one close by. But yeah, when he passed away, like I said, that was a big hit, especially to use the word legitimate researching.
Yes,
he was top of the line. He was one of the go-to guys. So it's pretty cool that you got to meet him. I never have had the opportunity to go. I've been to Bigfoot conferences, but not one with a big name like him. So that's pretty cool that you got to meet him and spend some time with him.
Well, the problem that I see with that is that there are people who lend credence and validity to the investigations that are present. And then there are people who, for whatever reason, money, I can only assume, who are involved in doing. I can't even name the TV show, nor is it worth naming. But a bunch of goons decided that they were going to go out with guns and try to shoot and capture Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Just give me a break. That's so stupid. But it got views. It got watched for a while. It had a season, maybe two. I don't know. But it's stupid crap like that makes people, when they think of cryptids, when they think of Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, they think of guys like that.
Right, and that's, to me, the most detrimental thing to trying to make Bigfoot legitimate is those fools on that show. I know the one you're talking about. I watch all of them when they come out, just out of curiosity, but and because there's so many actual hoaxes out there that people won't believe any kind of evidence because they assume that it's all just another hoax. And these people that want their 15 minutes or 5 minutes of fame or whatever in the Bigfoot community, the Sasquatch community, they do so much more damage to any kind of attempt to make it a legitimate science by doing these things. And I don't know, they kind of disgust me in a lot of ways, but because there's so much out there that I think could be real evidence that just gets overlooked because of these morons and their little fake videos and their cheap suits and all that kind of mess. And it takes away from any kind of real legitimate research.
Well, let me see if I can put this up here. This is for you, Rick. This is the newest that I can discover with regard to somebody who's trying to make a name on something that's really, really stupid. There's a guy, I can't think of his name. Allegedly, he was a performance artist. He's charging $9.31 to see his fake Bigfoot corpse at the New York State Fair. And then essentially he's been already proven a hoaxer. His name is Charles Snake Stewart. Said that he found something really strange in the Adirondacks, a full and complete and intact body of a Bigfoot that was 8 feet tall. Now, the interesting point also is that he was on, Finnerty's show just probably last Thursday, I believe. And again, Charles Stewart, the Snake, the Bigfoot hunter, he said, according to reports, he submitted DNA to the Cornell Veterinary Biobank, and according to what he said, it was 58.5% Neanderthal and 41.5% human. And so one of the first things Finnerty said was, okay, if you had an 800-pound body, how is it that you and allegedly, according to what you're saying, a friend managed to transport this thing, which is on view somewhere in New York? And the guy just had ridiculously stupid answers for it. And, it goes into the artist behind the corpse, the anatomy of deception, a history of hoaxes. Well, no crap. No crap. And now apparently the newest defense is that, well, it's performance art, and therefore that makes it valid. No, it makes people like you morons. It's just...
Isn't that kind of a given already, though?
Well, anything that was good and positive, that was... Snake ain't trustworthy? Say it ain't so. Snake Plissken, I heard you were dead. It's not Snake Plissken. But you can do years, decades worth of good, positive work behind a credible anthropologist like Dr. Jeff Meldrum and have it shot down in a day or two by people like this. And I'm sure there are a lot of folks that have said, I looked at the film, the Patterson Gimlin film, shot on horseback on apparently, if I'm remembering correctly, 8mm.
Just to make sure you mean
Yes,
this film?
exactly.
This one?
And then people took that and then stabilized it. I have a couple of stabilized copies, and then
Well, that's what I have, is about a 35-second
Yeah.
clip that's been stabilized.
and
right here.
then Dr. Meldrum trotted that out and showed in great detail, especially with regard to the metatarsal break, which is something that you don't have in humans when you're looking at footprints, and you can see that it was, I don't know, to me, it looks like not somebody in a suit. Why is it that if you decided that you were going to try to fake this, and a couple of guys on horseback who were ranchers and just riding around on horseback at this creek in 1968, and they decided they were going to hoax this, why did they hoax something in a suit with breasts that looks like a female? I'm sure they were thinking that far ahead. Well, if you listen to the 3 hours, there would be any number of indicators as to why this was valid. Now, I go back to 1968 and 2001, A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick. Essentially, very little, if any, money was not placed on the table in order to create a credible movie. And the special effects artists that were used at the time were the best in the business. For example, the various shots that were created of the slow movement in space, that was all done by Douglas, a British special effects guy named Douglas Trumbull. He also did the special effects on the very first Star Trek movie. Douglas Trumbull had a very big following. And I think some of the special effects he did were also in another a movie by Kubrick, Dr. Strangelove, who happens to be one of my all-time favorite movies. But Kubrick spent in 1968 roughly $2.1 million on the ape scene at the beginning of the movie, where finally you can see where the apes acquire intelligence after the monolith comes in, and the scene changes from eons ago as a bone that was used as a weapon flips up into the air and then morphs into a long bone-like looking spacecraft. They shot that scene with an amazing new special effect that is similar to the special effects that are only used now by Disney and by the people that created Star Wars, where they have a projection onto the background, which is green screened. However, the actors can see it and they can act to the background. That very similar way of shooting was done back then, so that the actors, it was reversed screened so that the actors could have a sense of being where they were, and the mountains, etc. You can fairly well tell what's localized on the set and what the background is. You can see that there's kind of an in-scene delineation behind all of that. Well, the state of the art was thin actors, and I can remember the guy that played the primary ape. He was named Andy Richter, and they got him because he was very thin and very flexible. And it's very similar to the guy named Andy Serkis today, Serkis, who has been in any number of your favorite movies with regard to, who was the crazy little critter?
Gollum.
Thank you. And he played that. He's played any number of things like that. But you can look at that, and even in 1968, where that was state of the art, you could look at that and say, dude in a suit, thin dude in a suit, but clearly thin dude in a suit. The hair, don't believe it. The mouth, the way it worked, not exactly credible. Planet of the Apes, as well as it was done, still not the same. And so I challenge people to go look at a stabilized copy of the Patterson-Gimlin film and tell me that you think a couple of guys who don't have, probably at that point, a couple of pennies to their name on horses with an 8mm camera going out for whatever reason could replicate that with a third individual.
Well, let's just watch it together.
Let's do that. Now, one of the things that Meldrum pointed out was that arms and torso are longer than a normal person's. The legs are shorter. As it turns and looks to the right, you can see that those are clearly breasts. Now, what kind of a guy trying to pitch a hoax into the ozone would think, I have an idea. I'll recreate Bigfoot, only I'll make sure that because it's never been done before and it's a super challenge even to begin with, I'll give my hoax a Bigfoot with tits.
They were going for the National Geographic angle. Don't judge me.
Yeah. Hey, there was a reason in grade school that I wanted to be the guy that went to the AV room to get the films and the film strips, okay? Because that's where the cache of National Geographic magazines was. And if you were a kid in the 60s, OMG. That's a show for another time, though.
Well, I mean, it is technically KLR After Dark, but yeah, we should probably do that one
That's
later.
very true. But having seen that and having spoken to Dr. Meldrum and having had an interaction and watched him there for a couple of days, I believe most logical thinking people would come to conclude he presents the greatest compilation of facts and reasons as to why that film is valid. And
all right, so I have some questions because reasons. So we're gonna start with Ken because he hasn't gotten to say much so far.
I'm just enjoying the show, man. I love listening to BZ talk.
No, me too. He has one of those voices that I could just sit and listen to for forever. But anyway, probably that didn't sound right. So
it's a machine. It's all technical. Anyway. It's not really me.
Sure it is. All right. So starting with Ken first, and then of course BZ gets to answer as well. Now that you've seen the film, and I know we've all seen it before, but since we just watched it, what is your immediate reaction when you watch the Patterson-Gimlin footage that we just watched? What did you think?
Well, it's first off, I want to say that it's probably the most analyzed film ever recorded, other than maybe the JFK assassination, right? So we've heard people's analysis of it and the breakdowns of it over the time. So they've pointed out a lot of things that I, have as a untrained eye, would not have noticed. But once you see what they're talking about, you can't unsee it. The muscle movement underneath what the fur. Some people say it's underneath the suit, but the proportions, the walk over the rough terrain, the muscle movements in the thighs, in the arms, the way the body turns, just the amount of detail, like BZ was saying, compared to what was available at the time. The Kubrick film was no expenses spared type event, and it's nothing compared to the quality of this suit that people claim it is. The technology is what this isn't there. To me, watching it the first time I watched it, it's basically this: either that is the greatest piece of technology as far as the suit goes, and the greatest hoax ever made by any person, anytime, anywhere in the world, or it's real. There's no in betweens here, based on what technology advancements they had back in the day, right? So, to me, the logical step is that it's a real creature. The details in now, if you watch the unstabilized, it's shaky. Sure, you can argue that there's not enough detail there in the original shaky film, but once it's stabilized, you can see the
Since you
detail of it, the
well,
muscle movement.
since you open that can
Yeah.
of worms, I have a question that goes with that too. So, in your opinion, does stabilizing and enhancing, like the footage that we just showed, the film make it more convincing, less convincing, or simply easier for people to argue about?
For me, I think it's more convincing that it's a real creature. The shaking film is pretty convincing that it's a natural event, that it wasn't planned, that it was just a reactionary moment between, for Gimli and them to film it, because they didn't take time to get the shot just right. They were running, they were trying to get in position, so it's crazy shaky. That makes sense. To me, that also leads to it being authentic. But once they slowed it down and stabilized it so you could see the detail, to me personally, and a lot of people I know, that just kind of seals the deal that to me it is real. Because if they had put so much, just think of it this way, if they had put so much time and effort into that suit to make this believable, then they would have took time to make the shot cleaner. They would have made time to get it in focus longer. They would want to make it as clear as they could to make it more believable, but they didn't. It was all panicky. It was all quick. It was all off the cuff, But once it stabilized it with our technology, that we could see it and slow it down, reverse it, zoom in, zoom out, all these other different kind of effects. Every time they analyze it, every time they add a new effect to it, every time they overlay different things to it, to me, it just proves it to be a real creature. Every time they try to disprove it, it turns around in my mind to show, hey, it's got to be real then.
All right, and BZ, so far as, and I know you've watched it probably about as many times as I have, what were your initial thoughts when you watched that video for the first time?
Back then, I made a mistake. The film is 1967. The movie was 1968. Doesn't really make any difference, but technically speaking, I should speak up on that. In 1968, around that area, that was something that I had no idea about. I just thought it was cool. Whenever it came up, it was fun to look at. But between then and now, and technology has been to the point where we can examine these things a lot closer. Now, the reason I think it was important that Dr. Jeff Meldrum analyzed this is because he was, in and of himself, a respected anthropologist. Sad to say, he was. And he specialized in anthropology, but also skeletal issues. And also, he specialized in primate locomotion. And he wrote the book over there, Sasquatch, Legend Meets Science. And what he pointed to in the presentation was the limb proportions of this, and also the foot morphology, which I'll get to in just a second, and the walking pattern, which he says and pointed out with a whole bunch of slides, the likes of which I don't have here because I'm not Dr. Jeff Meldrum, which he argued they are more distinct from human characteristics and much more difficult to replicate in a costume, especially with, like I said, the technological limitations of the 1960s. These guys, if this was a hoax, they should have been hired by Hollywood, and we should theoretically be light years ahead of being able to create beings in suits. Now, the original reference was the limb proportions, the feet. He argued that it had a link back to apes and chimpanzees because he was talking about the mid-tarsal break. And when you look at imprints of these things, the mid-tarsal break, when we walk, when humans walk, we tend to walk like this with our feet splayed out, and then they alternate like this. There's a certain distance between the feet as they walk, if you see them in snow, mud, whatever. These creatures tend to walk, and the evidence of them tends to indicate that they walk in a linear pattern, and the distance from one print to another obviously is longer than the standard human stride. And he went back to saying that there is some kind of a linkage here to creatures similar to apes, perhaps, because the mid-tarsal break, if you remember, is what apes use, gorillas, etc., for grasping at trees. So when we walk on something flat and we lift our foot, we do that from the ball of the foot. We don't do it from the midpoint of the foot. We do it from the ball and push off as we walk towards another point. This is not necessarily the case in a foot. The break, because this wasn't, this was a planted foot, but the mid-tarsal break is somewhere around here. So if you had this portion planted, you frequently got, and he had lots of examples of, just this point way past the ball of the foot breaking as it's reaching for another stride. So when he talks about these kinds of things, he focused on the tarsus, on a collection of bones that form the ankle, and that was kind of the basis of understanding Bigfoot prints. It's the tarsus, as he indicates, is a big, significant aspect of understanding Bigfoot. It distinguishes the human foot from the Bigfoot or Sasquatch foot, whatever you want to call it, in human anatomy, due to the presence of that break. And so that, as he explained, is a big kind of a quantum difference in terms of the architectural adaptation between a human foot and a Bigfoot's foot. And going back to, as Ken said, okay, in 1967, how would you not just create a form? How would you create you'd have to create a form upon which you applied hair, fuzz, fur. And Kubrick did it poorly in 1968, to the point where we understood what he was trying to say about man in the past. But I don't think there was any, although it was well done, I don't think there's anybody that didn't look at that and say at the end of the credits, Andy Richter as so-and-so, and didn't say, well, yeah, that's a guy in a suit. To this doesn't scream to me in 1967 available technology, dude in suit, because you would have had to have some kind of form. You would have had to have the fur. You would have had to have the cranium done. You would have had to create a skull, a slanted skull. You would have had to create breasts. You would have had to create some kind of the equivalent of musculature under that. And then over that, take the time to apply hair, etc., get it to some kind of an obscure, out of the way, woodsy area. So you'd need another 2 or 3 horses or 4 for the dude that's wearing the suit, and all the GURP that goes with it as you attach it and try to assemble it together on site, and then put it out there and say, okay, go walk that way. Go walk from left to right, and we'll be on a horse and we'll try to film you. That doesn't play to me. And as the movement occurs in enlargements that he made as he illustrated his presentation, there was a musculature under that. And it made to our brains a certain amount of sense. let me make a comparison, if I might. Do you have another couple of minutes, Rick? Okay.
Sure. We're not taking any breaks tonight because we haven't done a show in forever, so we're just going to go to a run out of gas.
Let me make another comparison, if I might.
I want to jump in real quick, BZ.
Yes, sir.
You just echoed what I was trying to get at. You just said it way more better than I could, but the amount of detail that they would have, the amount of knowledge that they would have to know to have as far as the way the muscle works and how it would react, and then build that into assuming a foam suit, something light enough this guy could wear and walk in and still react underneath the fur in that much detail. I mean, these guys should have been working in Hollywood and being paid bukus of bucks. They should have been the top of the field, as far as special effects goes, just for that knowledge to have. I mean, this is like the kind of knowledge that a doctor would need to have to know exactly how these muscles would react and for these steps, these movements underneath the fur. Again, I think, like it was said in the comments here, if it's a suit, then it's way overbuilt for three dudes just having a laugh. And I agree with that. And I just wanted to point that out. What you were saying is the amount of detail and time and work they would have had to put in to make this hoax for such a short video that just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up, So I just wanted to echo that I think me and you agree exactly on that point.
Hang on, I did something wrong. I'm trying to do something while you guys were talking, because I decided to make my little AI assistant do a little bit of its own enhancement here. So I'm trying to see if I can do a side-by-side real quick. So hang on.
But I didn't want to jump over you there, BZ. I just wanted to get that in before you moved on.
Oh, no. I think that's all very, very important. One of the aspects I want to put up there, and some people don't get it, some people don't see it, some people fall for it. But wouldn't it be? Let me throw it out to you guys, Ken and Rick. When you look at a film, for example, or you look at social media, or you look at something that is presented as AI, or something that's it's an attempt by AI to make something realistic, even from some of the best special effects houses. Do you not somewhere in your lizard brain, when you look at something that is supposed to be correct and it doesn't play, isn't there some portion in your brain that says that's fake? Mm-hmm. Now, it might be some of the greatest FX that you've seen in quite some time, but there's a certain something about whatever is presented to your eyes that allows most people to make an immediate assumption and literally a split-second judgment in terms of, especially today, that's AI. And you know what? I can tell. Nice try, but I'm not buying it. As opposed to, that's real. I see and I understand that that's real. That's probably film. And there isn't much in between. Have you not gone to any number of movies, seen videos, etc., where you've looked at whatever, fill in the blank, and you've said, that's fake, that's AI, not believing it in a second? Number two is when I was training at EVOC, which is the Emergency Vehicle Operations course. I trained in driver training and was a range master for a couple of departments. One of the things that I was trying, somebody told me that human eyes are not nearly as good and adaptable as animal eyes in the animal kingdom. And we can't pick out, threats that we might see on the periphery. And somebody challenged me to that. And so I decided, screw it. You know what? I'm going to call some zoos, and I'm going to call some doctors, and I'm going to call some people that are involved in mammalian science. And so I posited to them and I said, tell me about the human eye. I believe that the human eye is fairly good in terms of being able to pick out movement. And they said, almost all said right off the bat, the human eye is one of the most perceptive eyes in the animal kingdom. It will not be able to see the furthest. It will not have the greatest amount of clarity, but its ability to suss out movement is almost incomparable. And so using that and analyzing this film, to me, the point being, when you look at this, not in 1967 or 1968 technology, but now in terms of what we've been able to do with the stabilization of the original film, to me, my spidey sense is not tingling and saying fake. It doesn't go there.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, for me, it's usually the other way around. When I see stuff, it's more, my spidey sense more goes off when things don't seem fake. So yeah, but I want to answer a question from MD in the chat. So he wanted to know why they were filming there in the first place. It's because the area they were in already had a reputation because they had been finding footprints for a while, beginning sometime in 1958. So according to the usual account of the story, they had entered the area on horseback in October of 67 because recent track reports near Bluff Creek. They were riding and searching along the creek bottom when they unexpectedly encountered and filmed the figure on October 20th. But to back up for just a second before we keep going here. So just for fun, so this is the still shot that I grabbed from a second ago. I'm going to make it bigger on the screen because nobody can see it right now. So this is the still shot from the film. And then, just for fun, I grabbed it and tried to see if AI could make the face more understandable, shall we say?
Oh, more discernible, if you will.
Yeah, I can't seem to figure out how to make that bigger, though. So hang on, let me figure that out. Maybe let me turn my that might work.
Well, they were accused of being hoaxers. Okay, and so Roger Patterson, Bob Gimlin, Roger Patterson died. I think he had cancer in the 70s, early 70s.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, there we go.
So yeah, that's the best AI could do with it, but there's still enough facial detail for me in there to go like, yeah, that's not a movie prop or anything.
No, the point being, you tell me how a couple of guys who were not FX technicians, and even if they were, part of the cadre of the technicians that assembled the one of the early scenes in 2001, which was actually shot in 1967 and then came out in 1968.
Right.
You tell me how people back then could create something with that amount of verisimilitude. I defy you to be able to do that. Now, Roger Patterson died in 72. He had cancer. And on his deathbed, he said, geez, okay, Jeff is here. Look at that. Look at the first thing out of Jeff's mouth is an insult. Jeez, oh, pizza, you know the difference between us, mister. I'm the guy that always wears a hat because I'm bald. Ken is the guy that doesn't have to wear a hat because he's not bald. Jeez, oh, pizza, why I oughta. To the moon, Alice. So on his deathbed, Roger Patterson says, "No, I'm swearing. I'm going. I'm going away." He maintained to the very end of it all that the thing was real. Bob Gimlin continued, and a friend of mine, Alan Thomas, heard Bob Gimlin speak any number of times. He doesn't speak anymore because he's just too old. But when he was making presentations, Alan Thomas went to see this guy, and I wish I had. He was nowhere in the area. It was mostly in Southern California, and then down in like New Mexico, Arizona, those places. And I never got to see him. But, I believe that. The film is, I think like I said, it's 8mm. It's about 24 feet in length. It's not very big. I mean, total. I think it runs, if you look at the original one, I think it runs for maybe 60 seconds, if that. And It's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's in the public domain, and nobody has to, you can do whatever you want with it. But I still insist, particularly in light of the detailed presentation made by Dr. Jeff Meldrum, that this is not a dude in a suit. The technological capabilities, you could only replicate this today, I posit, in terms of you could only go with AI. Let me throw another example out there. And again, this just came to my brainulus. Harry and the Hendersons. Did you not love Harry and the Hendersons?
Dude, absolutely love that
Was
movie.
that not a great movie?
Yep.
It was an awesome movie with a great amount of character, facial characteristics, makeup, but you looked at the fur and you looked at the way that the head was placed, and the first thing that you saw was and thought of was, I love this movie, guy in a suit. But the guy in the suit is great. And the movie was great because it wasn't trying to make you think it was a Patterson Gimlin film. And for the life of me, I cannot think of a movie that was shot recently that wasn't FX, where somebody tried to make you think that there was a creature similar to a Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and they did it with just FX, with makeup in reality, not AI or CGI. I can't think of a recent movie that in other words, even what I'm saying is, I don't think even today you could put a dude in a suit and try to make you believe that it was Bigfoot. And there have been a ton of films out, since that, created by Hollywood, all the way from Cheap Ass to Harry and the Hendersons. And I don't think there isn't anyone who has looked at these movies. They're, okay, they're for entertainment. That hasn't looked at these movies and said, am I buying the bit? Well, in totality, to go along with it, you have to be, it's called a willing suspension of disbelief. And you have to be able to do that. And so if you buy the bit, you buy the movie. But I don't recall anybody in a suit recently a film coming from Hollywood that had the acumen and the belief and the believability that just that little snatch of film from 1967 could capture. I don't think you could do that today. If we can't do it today, how the hell did we manage to ever do it with a couple of guys that had no familiarity whatsoever with those abilities? They were ranchers.
All right, so I've got another piece of evidence I want to officially put on the record. This is an eyewitness statement from an unidentified 17-year-old from White Plains, Tennessee. It was recorded in 1977 as part of a dialect study. He was reluctant to speak because he'd been ridiculed, but he did claim that he had a direct encounter with an 8 or 9 foot hairy figure and described himself as cautious rather than blindly believing everything. Now, I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's 15 minutes long, but I do want to play just a few minutes of it so you can kind of get the flavor of it. Probably about a couple minutes or so. If I can find the right one. Hang on.
While you're waiting, I would submit to everybody that you should check out 2 websites. One is the Bigfoot Investigative Group, created by a guy named Dan Toth, who I've had on my show quite a number of times.
So I'm assuming that didn't play through.
I didn't see a thing. I didn't hear anything.
No, sir.
That's weird. Hang on.
It just says a history of hoaxes on the screen. It looks like what I sent to you.
Well, it's one I already had, but I thought the recording would play through since I was sharing it. Let me check something. Things may get wonky for a second while I test something, so talk amongst yourselves.
Okay, talk amongst yourselves, kids. I recommended Bigfoot Investigative Group.com. And there are a bunch of ex-retired SEALs who all they do is sit and attempt to acquire evidence, both orally and on video, of Sasquatch or Bigfoot. That's one that I would recommend. And the other that if people want to know, okay, well, is there some kind of a centralized compendium of evidence with regard to sightings? I would refer everybody to bfro.net, BFOR.net. And that is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. If you want to find out, if you want to discover a map, for example, of Bigfoot reports, it has it broken down graphically by state, 16,705 reports. I looked for Oklahoma, Rick, and I found sightings for Oklahoma specifically. Then it broke it down into give me the newest sightings that you've had and registered since April 1st. You can find and look at that. So the Bigfoot Researchers Organization, that's a place that I highly recommend if you're looking to just find, okay, what is it that's in my state? What is it that's in my area? And it breaks it down precisely by that. And they do a really good, credible job of organization. Have they captured everything? I'm not sure. I don't know for a fact.
Okay. I figured it out. I got thrown off because we never shut down your screen share, so I loaded the wrong page. But here I should work now.
This is the Cal NEH American English Dialect Recordings Collection. Tape number 57.
Sadly, I don't have it queued anymore, so hang on a second.
She told me that you'd seen Bigfoot. I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah. I've been called a fool. I've been called a lot of other things, but really, see, the reason why I don't care to tell it, like if anybody else seen it, there's been other people besides me. There's a lot of other people besides me seen it, but like a lot of them won't admit it. But I guess when, like when I was little, I used to go uptown some and ride a motorcycle, and everybody made fun of me up there anyway because I was littler than they was and everything else. Mm-hmm. So everybody always cut me down, made fun of me anyway. So I figured, what the heck? A few more years being called a fool, that's not as bad as them, up there. But yeah, I've seen it down there. Well, when we was little, we went walking through the woods, me and my cousin did. And we found two great old big cave entrances. We walked up to one, and it was about yay-big around, Mm-hmm. And then we walked on that through there, we started to go down in there, but we was just little, and we figured, we got down in there, but Mom would always tell us to go in the cave, 9 times out of 10 you find a big old hole that you never get out. So that sort of scared us. And we walked on down there, and we found another cave entrance, and it was a straight line, we walked to it, but it was a long ways through them woods. Them woods don't look like they're very thick, but they are. We walked down through yonder a little ways more and found another hole. So we seen the size of it, and it's about as big as the other one, so we decided we'd walk back, And so we walked back to look for the other one, and we walked a straight line just like we had, and like I still to this day them woods like the palm of my hand, where I want to go in them. I mean, I know about every tree in there. I don't know what kind they are, but I know about where they're located. Mm-hmm. And we walked straight line right back to where that other one was first, when we first sighted it. And it wasn't there. It was covered up some way. And we never have found them since then. But I've got there's quite a few people seen it. Like I said, not many of them tell about it.
Oh yeah, it goes on for like 15 more minutes. I'll put the links in Rumble later for anybody that wants to go through and listen to the whole thing. But yeah, so kid's apparently 17 years old and recounting his tale of meeting a giant creature that he said resembled Bigfoot. So, yeah.
From the sound of his voice, I think I might know him.
I was going to say, well, sure, that's not Danny. I didn't want to go there.
He sounds like everybody I know. BZ, you mentioned the BFRO group.
Yes, sir.
I found this woman on my voice sounds weird. On TikTok, actually, it's called the
Sounds like it normally
Sasquatch.
sounds to us, my friend.
It's at Sasquatch Data. It's called the Sasquatch Data Project, and she's a young woman on TikTok that uses all kind of analysis, all kind of data to look at different Sasquatch encounters via location, the type encounters they are, whether they be classified A, B, or C, and it's very analytical. It's very scientific. It's not a bunch of just reports and opinions. She actually uses a spreadsheet that she's created to compare all these things and comes up with some really good worked out information. I think if anybody has TikTok and they want to, again, it's at Sasquatch Data, and it's the Sasquatch Data Project. She's another good one that I find pretty credible because she approaches it kind of almost a skeptic's type way. She looks at just the data of it and makes comparisons. So that's another good one that I follow along with BFRO and some others. I just wanted to throw that out there too. Give her a little plug.
Well, I'm looking at her website, and it's SasquatchDataProject.com. SasquatchDataProject.com. And she bills it as the ultimate data resource for Sasquatch researchers.
Mhm.
And a little bit further down, she makes a very salient point, which I think is it's up to citizen scientists to lead investigations into the Sasquatch phenomenon. Data is going to give us the answers we're looking for. And since one of the major voices in cryptidology or cryptozoology is gone, or anthropology related to Bigfoot or Sasquatch is gone, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, it's going to be up to us to either we find somebody sufficiently reputable like him, or we just have to go back to the hard data for a while. And some of the goons that we see, they're for ratings on TV, like the guys with guns. I mean, they're just morons. So the Sasquatch Data Project is good, highly reputable. And the other one that I made reference to and I shared with Rick was BFRO.net. That's the one that I was looking at that it's nothing more than essentially a repository of sightings, trackings, stats at BRFO.net. Or excuse me, wrong, BFRO.net, BFRO.net. And it breaks things down. Reports added recently, sightings by region, pre-Columbian, early American, sound recording, how to report a sighting. And there are many sounds that are associated with Sasquatch and Bigfoot. And I think essentially the same being, cryptid, vertical bipedal kind of unit, is all around a good portion of the planet. It's just what we call them different things in different regions, where there are even sightings here in Idaho, not nearly as many because a lot of the places that we have around here are really difficult to get to. So there are not a lot of people that are out and about in the big mountain areas. We still have snow on some of our mountains. And of course, there aren't as many people here, for example, in Idaho that are actually out. A great portion, as you would expect, of the sightings are in BC, that's British Columbia in Canada, Washington, Oregon, California, a lot of places where there is moraine, Moraine, kids. And also because of various issues, you have to have a source of food wherever you go. And some, it is theorized, of these bipedal units are coming down from the mountains because they're not finding quite as much food as they used to. So now you're getting some reports in the middle of, for example, the San Joaquin Valley, which is nothing until they rip them out by their roots, which is still replete with orchards all over the place. And now that reminds me, I tried, and I lived for 28 years at the 4,000 foot level in the Sierra Nevada mountains. And while I was there, I was in a cabin, and I was surrounded by big forests. I watched the deterioration of the forests. I was almost burnt out by 2 wildfires because of the absolutely shitty and reprehensible, air quote, forest management by California, which is true of any other state or nation. It's crap pushed by leftists. But a friend of mine, Alan Thomas, said, you know what, take a couple of oranges, put them in a netting. And I was in an area where I was not out in the middle of nowhere. And I wasn't really friendly because, you know me, I predominantly hate people. So I didn't tell a lot of folks what I was going to go do. But Alan Thomas suggested, take a sack, like netting, for example, put 3 or 4 oranges in it, find a tree that's above the ability of a dog or a raccoon or something like that to get, and put it on a branch and leave it there for a couple of days and see how long it takes to leave, if it ever leaves at all. And I did it, and about 2 days later it was gone. Of course, occurred in the nighttime. And yeah, I'm sure people will say, well, it was raccoons. I didn't have a history of having raccoons around that place. And so, can I say without in clear knowledge that it was something like that, a cryptid that took it? No, I can't. But it was just interesting because I played that experiment having told no one about it. So whoever decided they were going to remove it didn't do it because it was funny, because I didn't tell it to anybody. And it was removed by some kind of an animal. Was it a bear? Oh, hell no. Because going up that tree, doing that, it would have left really big marks.
Right.
So just another of in a series of things that for a while, if you're interested, they kind of make you go,
Speaking of things that make you go, I got something I want you guys to listen to. Kind of quiet. I'm going to see if I can jump it up a little bit more. Sounded louder before. All right, so I'm going to jack the volume up, then run it one more time. So hang on. The best I can get it, though.
That's interesting because historically, and the people that I've been speaking to, I'm probably friends with about 10 or 12 people that are interested in this kind of wacky stuff. And historically, howls like that have been associated with the presence of Bigfoot, and tree knocks have been associated with Bigfoot. And the newest guy that is now a friend of mine, the retired Navy SEAL from SEAL Team 3, is Dan Toth. And I've had him on the show 4 times now. And what he does himself, courtesy of BIG, the Bigfoot Investigative Group, is much different from people say like, this may or may not be the name of the show. I may not have it accurately. Expedition Bigfoot, where there's, 3 or 4 people that go walking around in various places and they encounter this kind of noise. And they walk around. And there's also the chick that's with them, the anthropologist. I cannot for the life of me think of her name. but they go around and they move. They are constantly moving. They're going either after prints that they see, or they are going after sounds that they heard, or cameras went off, etc. So their movement is almost constant. And I make this mention because Dan Toth has a much different take on things. And I think if anybody comes with some true evidence, Dan may possibly be the first. And he's the guy that knew Dr. Meldrum and was in his office and consulted with him. And Dr. Meldrum provided him with areas where he believed he would get more hits, where he would be more likely to find something. And Dan won't tell me where they are. He gives me general areas in which that he's been to, but he's heard sounds. He's heard wood knocks, and his gig is this, and I think this is why he may be successful. He goes to 3 or 4 areas predominantly, and he'll go there every year, 2, 3, maybe 4 times a year, and he'll go into that area, and he will find an appropriate location and stop and sit. And he has lots of cameras with him. He has lots of audio devices with him. He has NVGs with him. And he has recorded lots of audio and lots of video. And he's been there to the point and over any number of times, to the point where some of the local animals come up to him, and he's had this documented. And what he's attempting to do is to let his presence be such that they kind of get to know him a little bit. And he says he's had foxes come up to him and sit next to him. He had a moose, which are very dangerous creatures, come up to him and lay down next to him. And I think that's one of the best ways that if you're going to get some evidence, it's probably going to be at night, not necessarily during the day. And it's going to be when some of the surrounding animals become accustomed to your presence over a period of days or months or weeks, or return yearly to these areas. And as opposed to just walking around, making noise with a big camera crew, yeah, maybe they've got some evidence. I'm not saying they don't have evidence, but I'm thinking that a guy with a pack, well equipped, with food, staying out overnight and just sitting. You know, it's like, God, I can't think of the guy's name for this either, but I'm sure you've all seen the videos sitting with dogs. And the guy has a name that I can't remember, but what he does is he goes into a cage with a dog that is really flighty, really scared. And his job is to sit and associate with the dog to the point where the dog will begin to relate to him and come over, and he wants to break that wall. He wants to break that window so that the animal, the dog in this case, begins to associate with him, and he can relate to it. And he'll feed the dog. He'll get the dog to come over in little increments. And I think that's what Dan Toth is attempting to do. He plots in one spot, sits, observes, listens. When it's daytime, he'll get up, he'll come back. He's mostly there at night. And I think of all the people of which I'm familiar, he probably has one of the better chances of capturing whatever it is that he comes across. But according to he and Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Dr. Meldrum provided him with a series of locations where he thought his chances would be better. And so, you know, you're gonna get it one way or the other. Do I believe that dude had the body of an 8-foot, 800-pound dude? No, it's idiots like that and the guys with the guns that give all this, you know, like, you guys are stupid. I don't believe in any of that crap.
All right. Well, since you opened the can of worms on stupid, I've got one other point I want to make. Because a lot of times when I start talking about Bigfoot with folks, which I admit most of the time I talk politics, so I don't talk Bigfoot that often. But when I do, everybody's like, the FBI's investigated this, right? They didn't find anything. No, really, what happened was somebody decided to involve the FBI and tried to send, and the FBI, they did a test on a hair sample, and they found that the sample that they tested wasn't from anything in the ape family. It was from the deer family. So the idea that because the FBI tested one hair sample and found it was deer, that they did some full breakdown investigation on Bigfoot and proved it was a hoax. No, that didn't happen. They did one thing, and it was they ran a test. That was it.
Rick.
So-
Have you not heard of the X-Files? God, you big
No.
doubter. How sad.
Yeah, but there's a reason that Mulder was in the basement. Nobody believed him.
Well, hey, when I was with the FBI, you know who was in the basement? Behavioral sciences. Behavioral sciences. They buried those guys in the basement because nobody believed in it.
Yeah, but when you were in the FBI, BAU was just
Yes,
starting.
it was. That was BSU, and you had to go into the gun cleaning room. This is how much they were respected. You had to go into the gun cleaning room, past all the people in the various academies, go around a corner into an elevator, and then down into the depths of the basement where there were no windows, etc. And that's where BSU was located. The other thing,
Yeah, they did a Netflix series about the beginnings of that, and it only got 2 seasons. I kept waiting for one more
right,
season.
it was a great series.
It was awesome.
Manhunter.
And I'm like, what? Yeah, Manhunter was awesome.
Incredible.
I kept going, where's the next season? Where's the next season?
That was great. Netflix did the stupid thing like they normally do. Oh, we're getting pretty good ratings on this. Screw you. See you later. We'll go to something else.
Extremely frustrating. You mentioned the FBI, Rick. In 1975, the Washington Environmental Atlas, BZ, you may know about this. It's a 114-page document made by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And on page 53, the engineers included a full-page entry detailing Sasquatch, complete with map and historical sightings and what they should do if they encounter the creature. And that's an actual document U.S. Army Corps of Engineers created in 1975. And then in several survival and wilderness field manuals, Sasquatch is mentioned several times on what to do, just like you would if you encountered a grizzly bear or a cougar. So back then, I don't know if they have updated it since. I'm sure they have, but at one point, the government was actually taking it serious enough to put it in their literature for training purposes.
I just want to double check something. Did you say cougar?
Yeah.
Giggity, giggity. Giggity, giggity.
Yep.
I think he did.
But no, seriously. I mean, yeah, that was a great point. That was actually one that was kind of buried in my notes. Because, yeah, at one point, this stuff was being put out in survival manuals for, like, service members and stuff. So, kind of makes you feel like that's one of those where there's smoke, there's fire kind of thing.
And also, Native American, they have the totem poles, right? And I think this is just as legitimate as anything the government would put out. But they have these totem poles of eagles and wolves and Sasquatch and a bear, all on the same list, all on the same pole. So why would they have all these real world creatures and then all of a sudden a myth put up there? So I think those hold just as much influences of.
I do have one question about the totem pole. Do you remember what order they were in? I'm just curious. Was the Sasquatch more towards the top or the bottom?
The pictures I've seen is usually more towards the top, but
okay. Well, because we always get that wrong in Western society. It's always, low guy on the totem pole. Guess what? For them, being closer to the earth was actually considered more revered. So being called the low guy on the totem pole is actually a compliment. So I was just curious about placement, because if it was lower on the pole, that means they took it really
I'll
serious.
have to look at some other pictures of them too. But for some reason in my mind, it was, I know the birds, the one that pops into my head immediately, the bird was on the top. Might have been an eagle or hawk or something. And the Sasquatch creature was beside the bear. but I don't remember exactly what order it was in. I'll see if I can find that picture.
Strange things on the show tonight that BZ didn't know about totem poles. Thank you, Rick. I don't have stock in this, but usually when I talk about it, I like to make reference to it. And then that and a few other things convinced me that, in my opinion, Bigfoot Sasquatch exists. And it's called, well, like I say, there are sightings that are in Oklahoma that you know of, Rick. Is there a different name for whatever being may be in your region in Oklahoma? I doubt they're referred to as Bigfoot or Sasquatch, or are they?
I mean, around here, it's always, I mean, it's, as far as ever since I was a kid, it's always been Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Most commonly Bigfoot, because, Sasquatch is kind of hard for rednecks to say.
And then, Ken, where you are, is there a different name or appellation for Sasquatch or Bigfoot?
Yeah, for sure. Real quick on the totem pole, I want to correct myself. I just looked it up again and saw the picture. Traditional Pacific Northwest totem pole, the Sasquatch figure, is most commonly positioned at the bottom of the pole with the bear just above it. So there you go. I just wanted to touch on that real quick. Appalachian Bigfoots in our area, we have wood booger. Is a pretty common one. Then we have the hairy man. We have, if you go further south in the swamps, it's the skunk ape.
Skunk ape, right?
Yep.
And
Yowie. There's a few other ones that jump out, but Bigfoot, where I'm from, is usually the one that's most common. But there are some different versions, different names depending on where you're at. Wood booger is a pretty big one too. So
that would gather my attention right there,
mm-hmm.
if for no other reason than that. I want to make reference, like I usually do, to a DVD. I've got a copy of it. I met the guy very briefly. Big ego, really big. But I watched what he assembled called Discovering Bigfoot, and I don't have any investment in this guy. I'm not making money out of this. But if you have not, I would recommend going to, I don't know, it used to be on Netflix, and this stuff is for free. Netflix, maybe you can watch it on YouTube. I don't think you're going to have to pay for it either place. But go look at a thing by a guy named Todd Standing, just like it sounds, and look at his creation called Discovering Bigfoot. And okay, it's a little melodramatic in places because, after all, it's Todd Standing. But to look at, he did a few things in a systematic way on this, and he's got some credible sources on this DVD. It's about, I don't know, maybe 2 hours long, hour and a half, something like that. And Dr. Meldrum is in it, and a couple of other fairly valid people along with this. And he made a bunch of experiments in order to try to lure Bigfoot. And I think he used apples or some fruit, something like that. And he acquired video, which, when you first look at this, and that's why I want everybody to go watch this.
Mm-hmm.
I came back convinced. But that's just me. I would like everybody to go watch Discovering Bigfoot, and then interspersed between a whole bunch of stuff that is kind of dramatic. Because after all, he's trying to sell this thing, and I never bought it. I'm not profiting from this. He's got some capture on video of these things that are mostly faces. And to me, they play. To me, my spidey sense didn't go, dude in a face mask.
Mm-hmm.
So go out, just throwing it out there into the ozone. Go out, take a peek at it, see what you think. It was an element of allowing me to open my mind to, you know what, I think this is true. And then the absolute capper was last year in 2025, watching Dr. Meldrum's presentation, as in, holy shit. Yeah, I get that.
Mhm. I've seen it, BZ. I've watched it, and I agree with you, especially on the faces. It's the eyes. And each of the faces are slightly different, but the eyes seem to have something more to them than a mask.
Yeah, it's like looking into, and I love dogs. I'm big on dogs. But you look into the eyes of a dog that's your companion in your family, and you can't help but, in certain situations, in the right light, in the situation, you're looking at your pet dog and you're going, and looking at their eyes, and you're saying, there's something in there. There's something in there. That's an intelligent being with which I can have a relationship, a companion. And it's from looking at those eyes that I looked, as you mentioned, Ken, very accurate assessment. You look at what he presents in Discovering Bigfoot, and if that's fake, that would be really difficult to fake.
Excuse me. Speaking of him, Todd Standing, again, I've seen all of it. Very good stuff. There's a guy, Les Stroud. He does the Survivor Man shows.
Yes, Les Stroud. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I watched some of those. He never saw it, but if I'm remembering correctly, and Ken, you correct me, he encountered, that dude was great. He had lots of evidence. He had broken trees. He had bent trees. He encountered collections of trees that were assembled together in a way that the average 6 foot, let's say, human being couldn't possibly have assembled without help. Like all the trees that were stacked together like a little bit of a teepee. He encountered a whole bunch of evidence. That was a great series of shows. Can't think of the name, but damn, I agree with you, Ken. That was
I've
great,
got it. It's Survivor Man Bigfoot. You can find all of them on YouTube for free. And he actually does a few shows with Todd Standing as well. He went out there with him in one of the in investigations, and they actually took the apples, put up in the trees, and then the next day they were gone, that kind of thing. But what I liked about Les Stroud is he goes in as a skeptic. He just wants the truth.
Yes.
And in the Survivor Man Bigfoot, again, it's on YouTube. You can find it for free. And there's several, like 10 episodes or something. And you can see his progression as he goes through. And he actually starts seeing or remembering things that had happened that he experienced that he couldn't put a name to. But then as the evidence starts building up, you can see him start opening up to the idea. Now, again, he's a skeptic through it, which I like. I love watching skeptics go after Bigfoot. And the Les Stroud Survivor Man Bigfoot on YouTube is an amazing one too.
See, because, and I completely agree with you, because a lot of these things are explainable. There are some shows, I don't know, some paranormal shows whose names I'm not going to mention, that they go in and they'll encounter whatever. And then they come back with reasonable explanations as to why people may have felt that they experienced X, Y, or Z. So I'm with you. I go into this as a skeptic, absent something that's convincing. Now, if this were a UFO show, I got lots of information about observations on that. But it's a Bigfoot show, so the only experience that I've had, and Rick, do I have time to go over this, or we got to wrap?
Yeah, no, you're good. Keep going. But when you get done with this, pause for a second, because I fell down a rabbit hole while you guys were talking, and it's interesting. So I want to.
Okay, no, you know what? I can wait. I actually remember this stuff, and I can recall upon demand. If you have someplace you need to go, let's go there.
You remember earlier when we were watching the video and you thought it was kind of interesting that, if these were guys trying to fake a video, why did they make the thing with boobs? So, that whole totem pole rabbit hole we just fell down? Guess what the name for those ape-like creatures on the totem pole is? It's Zanuqua. Guess what the translation for that is? Literally, wild woman of the woods.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So, I was like, wait, what? So apparently most of these things, if they have been seen, have apparently been female. So that tracks for them to have earned a name like that in native tongue. So.
Well, you see more does than you do bucks. So stands the reason that you'd see more female Sasquatch than you would males.
Well, that and bucks, about the first bang become gun shy, I would expect. Here's something that I'd like to point out. Not that it doesn't just hold for this show, but holds for a lot of other things. And Ken, you tickled my part of the brain for this when you mentioned totem poles. There seemed to be a series of consanguinity things that are similar in most all the civilizations that we come through. In other words, there is a similar thing to maybe a Bigfoot in many civilizations and in their history. We look at the what we call the Native Americans. We'll look at people in the Himalayas. We'll look at people across the globe. Ivan T. Sanderson explained that early in his book in 1961. I don't even know if you can get a copy of that anymore. Mine's all beat up. I'm glad I still have it. But there are similarities throughout all points of civilization and in history. In other words, we see, for example, there is evidence, and Rick, you'd have to address this, but of floating objects in the air with regard to paintings from a long time. There are a lot of things that we find not just in one era of history, but various other areas and countries and continents that have certain similarities. And the reason that's intriguing is because up until a certain point of civilization, none of these people basically interacted with each other. So if they were held separate for a period of time, how is it when we go back in history that we find a lot of similarities in these civilizations? I always find that to be kind of unique.
Yeah. Dragons is another example of that. They're across the world, and they had no way of communicating that type of phenomenon from country to country, continent to continent. But yet there's a proof of those people who have no way of corroborating these stories having the same type of creatures in everyday life,
Right. Until you had your own Bronze Age, for example, your own Iron Age, until you had the ability to build ships and sail across the waters. All of these things were held separately, and I think it's interesting that separate from the rest, there are some fairly consistent similarities throughout the ages.
So as an example, there's the Hindu epic of Ramayana. It actually features a group of beings known as the Veneras. They are often depicted as simian or monkey-like humanoids, and are well known throughout that area under that name. So there's actually even an ancient astronaut interpretation that comes along later based on that concept. And at some point, they're claiming they found some historical information indicating that the Veneras themselves may have actually come from space.
There are just I try now, particularly that I have the luxury of not having to worry about going to work every day. I find it interesting that there are a lot of things on this planet, the likes of which I submit we don't really have a fabulous grasp of, so to speak.
Yeah, I find myself going down rabbit holes all the time now that I do all this stuff from home myself, so I kind of understand.
It's like Charlie Daniels said, there's some things in these woods you just can't explain, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Rick, I'm going to send you something here in just a moment, and this is a setup to what I believe was a sighting that I had of a juvenile Sasquatch. And so here it is. This will set the background and give people a little bit of a better ability to understand what was happening. Probably in 2017, 2016, right around there. We used to go, my Mrs. BZ and I would go to and have a vacation, and we'd rent homes in either Fort Bragg or Mendocino or Gualala, really nice areas. But one of the ways we would use to get there was by way of Highway 20 in California. And Highway 20, when you pass Clear Lake, was right next to Clear Lake itself. And one time we were coming back from a vacation on the ocean, driving on Highway 20. There are a whole bunch of little teeny towns along the way. But Clear Lake is a fishing location. And a lot of fishermen take vacations in Clear Lake. And a lot of people have homes on Clear Lake and condos and whatnot, townhouses. And it's very, very popular with fishermen. You actually get some good catches out there. And on that lake are these little teeny docks like this. They're privately owned. They're not really very big. And this is where the people may park their boats, etc., so that they go out on a given day, drive around, catch fish. So as I'm driving in the Kraut car that I owned at the time, I'm looking to the right because I'm going south on Highway 20 next to Clear Lake. So the lake is on my right. Little towns are on my left. And Highway 20 is just 2 lanes at that point. I look over on the right and I see one of these docks, very similar in nature to this, except imagine, if you will, that right affixed to that dock is some kind of a little ladder with round rungs that go into the water, so that if you wanted to, I don't know, say swim from that dock, that ladder would be attached to the dock and you could come up to it and, put your feet down in the water through that step. As I passed through there, I saw what I thought was a juvenile Sasquatch coming up, emerging from the water onto one of those docks. Now, the other thing that I noticed at the time, there weren't any cars around. The other thing I noticed was that there weren't any people around. There weren't any fishermen around. There weren't any boats around. A boat like that, there was nothing around that dock at that time. And I saw that out of the corner of my eye on the right. And I looked at Mrs. BZ and said something similar to, HS, I have to go around. I think I just saw a small or juvenile Sasquatch. Jammed on the brakes, made a big U-ey, returned, came back. Of course, guess what? Not there. So we had a big discussion all the way back. And she was trying to convince me, okay, maybe you did. And I was thinking, I don't know if I did or not. And then I started to go back, and I couldn't do it because I didn't have internet. So we went back home, and then I started going back in reverse. And I thought, okay, the standard BZ if then equation. Okay, if that was a Sasquatch, what was it that would lend credence to that being true? Well, it was wet, and it was brown, and it was a medium to a light brown. And it had striations down the back that were indicative to me of it being hair, like you would get if you were in a suit, or if you actually had fur and you were bipedal and you were emerging out of the water and trying to gain access to a dock. So I thought, okay, at first, that's indicating to me that it's furry, because that's what you would customarily see of, when your dog gets out of the water. Your dog's hair generally is going one way, one direction. And then I said, okay, stop. Now, wait. Doesn't somebody somewhere have a neoprene scuba suit that's this color, a light brown with kind of maybe some mottlings here and there? And so I went to investigate neoprene suits. If you're going to wear a suit for a freshwater or a cold water environment, do they have suits in these colors? And then in the process of doing that, well, I found no, and no. Okay. And the other question was, well, okay, if I found one like that, then do they have them for kids? Well, first I had to find the right color. There was nothing that was the right color. Then the other thing that was convincing to me is generally if you're wearing a suit like that, there would be some kind of a strict delineation between the suit itself, the body, which, by the way, went all the way down the arms, onto the hands, all down the arms, onto the hands. And then would there not, I don't know necessarily why you'd be wanting to wear a neoprene cap in Clear Lake, because it's not, 25 degrees. And this was during the late summer, so it's still fairly warm. So why would you necessarily be wearing some kind of a cap to cover your head? Because the other thing I noticed is that there was no horizontal line delineating the bottom of the suit from if you were wearing some kind of a cap. And because you would be doing that if you were cold, or if maybe you had, I don't know, you were wearing a mask. But there was no horizontal line separating the body of the suit from the head. And it just was one smooth line, as if you were getting out of water from the top of the head and back down over the back. And then the other thing is, it's summer. It's not that cold. So there would be no reason to wear a suit all the way down. People when they wear partial suits like that, like surfers or something, sometimes they'll have short sleeves and then your arms are exposed. No, the same color, the same striations on the arms and also on the hands. Now, I did not see it get up out of the water so that I could see the feet. Because number one, I was gobsmacked when I looked over to the right and saw it and went, the tabulation and the gears turning before I finally said, I think, wasn't that a Sasquatch? It must have been a small one. Maybe it was a juvenile. What? Turn the damn car around. And so I saw what I saw. I'm saying what I saw, which is why if I saw a Sasquatch, then I saw a juvenile Sasquatch. And then what's the chance in that area in Mendocino County in Lake? Lake is in Lake County. Clear Lake is in Lake County. We went into Mendocino County. But what's the chance of that happening?
Would have been Alf.
Juvenile.
If it was so small, it might have been Alf. You never know.
But it very well could have been an alien life force. Certainly, it's like alien beings from a dying planet destined to make the world their own. What series is that from?
Oh, damn it. I can't think of it right now.
Roy Finnis, The Invaders.
Oh,
God.
Yeah. It's been a minute. Since I paid attention to that one. All right. We are coming to the end of our time together. So, Daniel, I want to give you a second to chime back in again. Got any closing thoughts on anything we've talked about? Overall opinions on whether you believe Bigfoot is real or not, all that fun stuff on the way out. Then let people know where they can
I've
find
shared my stories about what I've seen and what I've heard and what my family has experienced before. So I won't go into that much right now. But I just want to say, I guess, kind of in closing on it is, I think the reason why people in general want Sasquatch to be a hoax so badly is because if they accept the fact that Sasquatch could be real or is real, then that opens the door to what else is out there that's real. And that's a fear that we as humans, we don't want to face that. We want everything to be nice and clean and put together and something that's understandable and easy to believe. And if you accept, once you open the door to Sasquatch being a real creature, then they're afraid that, okay, what's next? What else is out there? So I think the pushback so hard on Sasquatch being real is based in fear a lot of ways. And that once you get past that point and you start accepting that there are things out there that you don't know. And growing up where I grew up, BZ obviously out west, me in the Appalachian Mountains, from the early age, I had an understanding that there's things out there that we don't understand. So I guess I was kind of more ready to accept the fact that Sasquatch is a real being. Because, like I said, I've had experiences and I've heard things, I've seen things that I couldn't understand until I started looking into what Bigfoot is as I aged and become older and started learning for myself. So basically just, I would like to encourage people to have an open mind. Don't let fear stop you from investigating and accepting things that makes you uncomfortable. Is Sasquatch something that's to be feared? Not necessarily. I think it's something to be respected. I do think it's a blood and bone animal, but it's part of nature. There's a lot of things of nature that gets found and discovered every day in science, and it finally gets proven. And I think eventually that piece of evidence will come in that will seal the deal on it and make people face the reality of it. So that's just kind of my thoughts on it. It's everyone has their own path that they have to follow to accept or deny the facts, and you can't force anybody. So just keep an open mind. There's Sasquatch out there, and there's other things out there as well. A lot of it's demonic, a lot of it's angelic, a lot of it is just an undiscovered animal. So just be prepared, have an open mind, and do your own investigation and make up your own mind. That's really where I'm at on it.
All right, and where can folks find you, sir?
At BumpstockKen on X. Also at Front Porch Forensics, which is at FP_forensics on X as well. That's really all I got. Front Porch Forensics on YouTube and any other podcast player you can find. That's me and my wife, Bumpstock Barbie. So we are happy families of KLRNradio.com, and pretty much that's me. I'm pretty easy to find. So,
all right, say good night, Daniel.
Good night, Daniel.
Well played, sir. All right,
Daniel, I thought his name was Ken.
It's either. His real name's Daniel, but he goes by Bumpstock Ken.
Well,
they've said it on the air, so I know it's not a big deal.
He makes a good point in terms of there are things that are out there that if you open your mind to can come back and be rather disturbing. Here's one. There are 2 points I'd like to make before I go. Number one is, have you ever heard of a guy named Father Chad Ripperger?
No, but if you hum a few bars, I might know it.
Father Chad Ripperger had a 3 to 4 hour interview with who's the guy that's the former SEAL. He fluctuates between he and Joe Rogan as to being the number one podcast. I can't think of the guy's name, but he had a 3 to 4 hour interview.
I know who you're talking about, but his name escapes me right now.
Yeah, with Father Chad Ripperger. Folks, you got to go look at at that because he talks about exorcisms and he talks about demons and he talks about things that are demonic. Go look at that interview and watch the whole thing and come back that you don't think that he's talking from a point of being very well informed. The other thing that I want to mention to everybody before we go, this came from Hamlet, from Shakespeare, and it's a quote that says, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy." And there are many, many things that I believe that we are unfamiliar with even now. We have no idea even more that what's at the bottom of the ocean. We really don't. So thanks for having me here tonight, Rowdy Rick Robinson, and thank you for inviting me.
Were you talking about Sean Ryan, by the way?
Yes, the Sean Ryan Show. Yes,
I knew that name was in. I knew that name was in there somewhere.
Yep,
I just had to rewind the tape.
Sean Ryan.
Actually, I think we follow each other. I think.
Go look at the interview between Sean Ryan and Father Chad Ripperger. OMG. Amazing. And I'm not Catholic, and I don't like organized religions, as you well know.
Oh, I know.
Amazing interview.
All right, where can folks find you, sir?
I am BZ of BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show, live and direct on the SHR Media Network and also on KLRN Radio every Tuesday and Thursday night, beginning at 8 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, your time, the center of the universe time, and 11 p.m. Eastern. And I, for 2 hours, am proud to be your conservative Sherpa. Thank you, sir. By the way, my hat, for those that need to see.
No. Say it right. Say it right. It's not a hat.
It's a.
You call it a what on your show?
Okay, I'm missing it. Let me show you the hat.
Remember, you call them tiaras on your show. That's why I was trying to give you a hint.
Oh, thank you. God. Dish. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, tiara is brought to you by My Little Pony. Come on, it's your whole shtick.
I know. I'm going to make a t-shirt that says that.
All right. So I'm going to give you guys my final thoughts before we wrap up. All right. So here's my thing, right? So if Bigfoot is real, and I firmly believe that it is, I'm just giving you my opinion. But here's what I don't understand. If scientists want to disprove Bigfoot, since scientists believe that evolution is the end all be all only answer to how we got here, Big Bang, all that stuff, why are they trying so hard to disprove what would typically be considered the missing link between man and ape? That's the part that I never really have understood. So if it's real, because that was one of the things that everybody always brought up, if it's real, it could basically be the link between how we went from being, simian to hominid. So I'm like, why would they be fighting so hard to say it's not real? So that's always confused me. But here's the thing. I know a lot of folks, when I tell everybody the myriad of shows I do, most of them are political, some of them are some opinions, some more news centered. Then we do shows like this one, and everybody's like, we don't really understand how you go from doing news and political stuff to this. It's the same basic premise. I research things, and then I tell you about the things that I research, and then help you decide to form your own opinion, even if you disagree with me. I don't really care. But that's the whole point of shows like this. I'm not trying to tell you that Bigfoot is real and you have to believe it, and I'm going to beat you over the head till you do. I don't do that on my other shows. I'm never going to do it on this one either. But I do want to present the evidence to you so that you can decide, because as BC actually stole one of my lines when he started talking about Shakespeare, because I already had it planned in my closing, because there are more things under heaven and earth than we're ever going to understand. And there are so many things that, and here's the thing, going back to politics for a second. Every single one of our founding fathers believed in something. Not a single one of them has ever gone on record and ever went on record saying they were an atheist. They might not have considered themselves Christians, but they were at least agnostic, which means they knew something created us. They just didn't want to put it into a particular box. So here's the thing. If there are, in fact, more things under heaven and earth, this all would lend together to the point that I'm trying to make. All I want you guys to do, no matter whether you're listening to my political shows, whether you're listening to this show, whichever one it is to take the information that I'm giving you, that Amish may give you, that the alien may give you when he's on, that folks like BZ and Ken might give you when they're on, and then form your own opinions. That's it. That's all. No more, no less. As far as where you can find me, I will be off tomorrow night because I have a birthday party tomorrow afternoon and I'm not rushing. And then I think I'm going to try to bring Rails back on Monday night because I know Sean was supposed to be coming back sometime soon. So I want to get back to trying to make sure he's got an opening act for when he comes back. But we're going to get out of here. Again, want to thank everybody for taking the time to hang out with us tonight. You can find me at X as RowdyRick73. You can find everything we do at KLR Radio on X, Facebook, and YouTube under that same at KLR Radio. You can find us on Rumble as America's Podcast Network because for some reason they didn't like KLR Radio. You can also find me as an occasional contributor in places like twitchy.com, misfitspolitics.com, and theloftusparty.com. I'm also the executive producer of the Loftus Party podcast, which drops to any and all of your favorite podcasting sites, usually on Tuesdays. Night, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Green man in the desert night, Bigfoot roaming out of sight. Government shadows, secrets deep, conspiracies unfold while we sleep. Strange encounters unexplained, truth is out that breathing shame. Men with knowledge, voices bold, unraveling history, stories untold. Area 51, a whisper.
Say goodnight, Gracie.